Today in Grow a Garden in Roblox, we're going to talk about the game being too hard. I have 5 things the game is doing great right now, and I have 5 things the game is completely messing up right now. If this sounds interesting to you, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, become part of the first 300 KOGs on the channel, and let's get into the video. I'm sure you've heard the sentiment around the game right now. The game is too hard. The game is too difficult. The game is too complicated. I can't play. I don't want to play. I don't have the time to play. I have heard these words uttered more than I have ever heard them in the comments of my videos, in the Dawn Discord server where I talk all the time, in the subreddit for the game, and everywhere I look. Like in the comment section of my video, I searched for the word hard and all of these comments have popped up. And all of these videos are videos I've released in the past 72 hours. That's it. Like all of these comments, every single one of these are all videos I made on the current week 2 and then week 1 of the event. It's insane. So many parents have told me their kids have stopped playing and have switched to other games like 99 Nights or Steal a Brain Rot because the game is just too difficult. They're in school during the day, they're busy in the afternoon, and they don't have the time to devote to actively grinding this event. And this game has become too much about the grinding and not enough about the garden and the growing and the AFK nature of what once was their favorite game. So let's talk about the things. I've got 5 things that I think the game is doing really, really well right now, and 5 things the game is dropping the ball on. And I'm going to alternate between good thing, bad things. So I don't just go all good things and then just hammer the game with all the bad things. The first thing I think the game has done really well with right now is the ability to teleport to another world in this event. Going to that new map. That fairy map is really cool. And I'm hoping that more events moving forward allow you to either really change this map or go to a new place and experience something new. I think the developers putting their effort into that is very cool and very interesting. I want to be able to go to a really cool Halloween place or a really cool Christmas place. Maybe we go to Santa's workshop. And exploring the game like that and putting the effort into those kinds of details, I think is really cool and really unique and changes the game up and gives it a great flavor. But having said that, don't do that if you're just going to overcomplicate the event. This event is quite complicated. Let me explain this. So I've had so many people say, how do I get fairy points? And they couldn't even figure that part out from the first week, even though we have all of these guides. Because imagine all the millions of players that don't go onto YouTube to watch guides. All the millions of players that just turn on the game and try and figure it out themselves. If you can't make it simple enough for your average young gamer who doesn't go on YouTube, you're doing it for the wrong audience. This whole event is really in-depth and complicated for a young audience. First, you have to try and farm your fairy points from this fountain right here, once an hour, which just triggered. And if you don't have the fruits or vegetables that the thing needs, people don't realize you can fill the fountain of power. So you have to fill your garden with all the plants that fountain needs and hope they get the glimmering mutation. And people don't have long to stay online to get the glimmering mutation. And sometimes they get stuck on certain sections where they don't have those fruits or they don't have those plants and they can't progress through the event at all. And let's say they're able to. Let's say they're able to progress through all 5 stages of the fountain and they reset it. They're sitting on 13,000 coins. That's fantastic. Those 13,000 coins can't even buy a chest, but let's ignore that part. Then they have to learn that all the new stuff from the new part of the event isn't even right here. It's in a separate world. Oh, and you can't access that separate world at any point in time. You have to wait until 30 minutes after the hour. Oh, and then after 30 minutes after the hour, you only have 10 minutes to go into that world. So then you go into the fairy world, which is only open for 10 minutes, and there's multiple vendors, which are not clearly marked. They're really hard to find. There's 3 different vendors selling 3 different things, not including the vendor over here that's selling something, not including the 2 crafting tables that can craft stuff. And then if you don't figure that out within the 10 minutes, the fairy realm closes and you're left sitting there going, what happened? For the average young gamer, this event is far too complicated. Having multiple vendors and multiple crafting stations and multiple different currencies is a horrendous idea. You're farming fairy points and you also need to capture fairies. And then on top of that, you're using shekels to reset the shop. That's 3 different currencies to consider for a young audience. Going to a fairy world is really, really cool, but only having it open for 10 minutes and then introducing all these different shops and all these different mechanics and all these different vendors and all these different crafting tables and all these different currencies is too complicated for young audiences. You gotta simplify things. Moving on to another good thing. Here's good thing number 2. Good thing number 2, allowing the glimmering mutation to apply to plants while offline. Perfect. Absolutely perfect. In a time when kids are in school and they don't have the time to play like they did in the summer, allowing mutations to go onto the stuff while they're offline is perfectly in line with the entire vibe and theme and the selling points of Grow a Garden. Your garden grows while you're offline. That was the main selling point of the game initially. It grows while you're offline. So having mutations apply to your plants while you're offline is perfectly in line with that message. And more of that kind of stuff needs to be considered when designing events. Allowing crafting tables to continue to craft while you're offline, perfect. Those types of things need to be continued upon and expanded upon when considering this game. Bad thing number 2. We had good thing number 2, not a bad thing number 2. There's too much grind in this event. There's too much grind in this event. You have to grind this Fountain of Power for fairy points. And if you get up to 1,000,000 fairy points, you can acquire, I think I did the math, I think it was like 66 chests for 1,000,000 fairy points. You know how you get to 1,000,000 fairy points? You do the Fountain of Power rotation 77 times, something dumb like that. So I did it the one time quickly. I did the Fountain of Power once, and then after resetting the Fountain of Power for 7.5 thousand fairy points, I was left with like 13,500 fairy points or so. So 1,000,000 fairy points divided by the 13,500 fairy points means you have to do it 74 times. You do the Fountain of Power 74 times to get to 1,000,000 fairy points. And then you blow through those for about 60 chests or so. It's so dumb. There is so much grinding in this event to even get a chance to maybe unlock the Phoenix pet, which everyone is interested in. It's way too grind heavy. You need to design your events while kids are in school to be very casual friendly and very AFK friendly. And then understanding that fact, know that the power gamers like me and others out there will power game the event. You gotta let them. You can't design your game for the power gamers because you're going to leave behind the casual player base, which is the 95% bulk of your player base. On the flip side, you also don't want to simply alienate your power base by preventing them or slowing them down in their grind. Allow them to grind. They're gonna want to grind. Let them be grind happy. But you can't leave behind the casuals. So first, design your game for the casuals, and then maybe allow a way for your grinders to grind. But if you had to choose between the two, always choose the casuals. Always make it casual friendly. Always make it AFK friendly. Always consider that your people are in class, your audience is in class, your clients are in class, and they don't have the time. Good thing number 3. I really enjoyed the fact, and I don't know if we ever saw this in previous events, but I really enjoyed the fact that the second week of the event was far more cool and interesting than the first week. Because the first week of any event always has the hype of being the new event and people are going to try and experience it, right? So that's not hard. But week 2 of events can lag behind because it can feel kind of same old, same old. So introducing the fairy world and the ability to teleport to a new map and do a parkour and adding all those cool mechanics in the second week made the second week feel like it had some oomph to it. I thought that was a really cool idea. Now, take away the complication, but adding all the coolness to the event in the second week, I think is a really neat idea. Negative thing number 3 about the game right now. The rewards are mid. The game has a problem. And the problem is there are not enough functions and features in the game for the rewards to modify in new ways. We have pets that can pretty much do everything in this game. You have pets to hatch quicker, hatch more, hatch longer. You have pets that sell and get pets back. You have pets that modify things when they're hatched. You have pets that modify plants. You have pets that modify mutation machines. You have pets that do all sorts of things in this game, and your design space of potential new pets is shrinking and shrinking and shrinking because there's not enough features for them to modify anymore. You have this point where your rewards are mid. I can't think of a single pet released since the Red Kitsune that has been desirable or interesting or really all that useful. So this leaves you with 2 paths forward. You either A, add more features to the game that give you design spaces to design new pets, or B, you power creep. And power creep is a dangerous road, but sometimes it's necessary. All sorts of games have introduced power creep over time. Even trading card games have introduced power creep over time. So eventually one day you might need to release a pet that is just a better version of a previous pet. Like the Shiba Inu was just a better version of the Golden Lab. Eventually you might need to entice people by releasing a pet that's a better version of a previous pet. For example, maybe you need to release a pet that is a better dragonfly than the dragonfly. Maybe one day you need to release a pet that offers a mutation, a variant that is better than rainbow, making the butterfly not as valuable. You might need to do this to give people hype and interest and reasons to grind the game. Dangerous, slippery road, but that is not for me to decide. I'm not a game developer. That might be for you to decide. Good thing number four. I like the fact that the first week of this event was built in very strongly into the second week of the event. What do I mean by this? I like the fact that farming for fairy points was rewarded in the second week. Nothing would drive me or other players crazier than having a currency or a thing that you're doing in the first week of an event become obsolete in the second week of the event. I was terrified. When I saw the luminous spray in the leaks, I articulated that there was a good chance the developers were afraid of us grinding so many fairy points in advance that they would render fairy points obsolete and ruin all that grinding. Nothing damages a hardcore player base more than having their work completely usurped. So the fact that you could still use fairy points as currency in the second week is a bonus and is definitely something you want to consider continuing to do moving forward, where the first week of the event continues to build into the second week of the event very efficiently and very nicely. But don't make it too grindy and don't make it too complicated like we articulated earlier. Bad thing number 4. The game is too focused on pets. Grow a Garden is too focused on pets. But we talked about this, how the first layer of the game is the plants. The second layer of the game is the pets and the way they modify those plants. And the third layer of the game is pets and items that modify the pets. And it works its way down from there. And because since pets are the only thing we can trade, pets are the only thing people want to talk about. Pets are cool by nature and pets are fun to show off. But this was a game built on the foundation of growing a garden and growing ridiculously sized plants and showing off those ridiculously sized plants. And now it's a game about what kind of cool pets do I have and how can I trade them and what kind of cool pets can I acquire. I'm afraid that if we don't ever see seed trading, seeds and therefore plants won't have any kind of desirability or interest in a game called Growing a Garden. And you will have people articulate that being able to trade seeds will make all the old plants kind of lose their value, or not value, but lose their sparkle, their shine about being OG plants and people who own OG plants. And that's true. It will, but you can't make decisions on game design based off of the smallest percentage of your player base. You have to make decisions on game design based off of the largest percentage of your player base. If your goal is to have as many players as possible. As such, you need to consider, like I said, making things easier and simpler to play for younger audiences and providing these audiences with a chance of acquiring things they were never able to acquire. You remember how hype it was when we were able to do events? I can't remember if it was a bee event or if it was the summer event, but we were able to acquire pets and plants from bygone era. We were able to acquire moon melons. We were able to acquire blood kiwis and things like that. Being able to acquire old things that you can no longer acquire is very fun for players. A lot of players missed out on many of these old things. And anybody who is trying to stop this is simply gatekeeping and should not be considered. So the game is too focused on pets. And I think we need to focus more on plants and gardens and rewarding those types of things once more. And I'm also partly to blame. A lot of my content is based around pets because a lot of people's interest is based around pets. One thing I pledge to do is to try and talk more about the plants in the game. Excellent thing number 5 the developers have been doing recently. And a lot of people don't talk about this enough and don't give the developers enough credit for this. The developers have been doing a great job of adding evergreen mechanics into the game. What do I mean by that? They haven't been solely focusing on events that rotate out every 2 weeks. They've been focusing on other things to add to the game to give us more things to do from now until forever. Great example of that, the pet mutations machine. Another great example of that, your garden guide, the achievement system. Another great example of that, the Ascension system, though that needs work. We'll talk about that in a second. The developers have been continuing to add things to the game that will stay in the game long after events rotate out, and that's great. Continue to do that. Continue to innovate and add to this game to give people things to do and to try and to experience. Bad thing number 5 that the developers need to do and fix right now, and I'm walking towards it, and it is the entire Ascension system. It's far too hard for the casual player. It's actually hard for the hardcore player, which is insane. And I'll explain why. It is not the shekels amount. Nah. It's not the shekels amount. People can do that. Okay, it's not a problem. It's 1 trillion shekels. It's a lot, but it's meant to be more of an end game kind of thing. What people can't do are some of these plant rewards. This one is still relatively easy. Why? Eventually, no matter how long I stay in the game, eventually I will get Bloodlip, Eclipsed, English is hard, and Frozen. I will eventually get those things. There are requirements in this system that are so hard to do because of the way mutations work. There is times where you need to acquire a twisted plant with other mutations, such as Aurora or Bloodlit, and you have to do that before Twisted turns into Tempestuous as soon as a little bit of wind comes from a Windstruck mutation. Let me say that again. There are times where you have to have a fruit that has ridiculously hard things to acquire, such like Aurora, or such as Sun-Dried, or such as Bloodlit, and also require Twisted, the Tornado one, which is the rare wind effect, before they get slapped with Windstruck, which is the super common wind effect, turning Twisted into Tempestuous. Any fruit that could have had the Bloodlit, or the Sun-Dried, or the Aurora, or the difficult mutation to acquire, as soon as those things get Windstruck, they're useless to you. You can't use them. You have to remove them. It's a picket because it's not going to work. It already has Windstruck. If it already has Windstruck, it will never get Twisted. It will immediately jump to Tempestuous. As such, there are people who are literally logging out of the game and praying for the Twisted mutation before the usual wind hits. They're avoiding the wind. People in my Discord server are jokingly referring to themselves as wind dodgers, trying to dodge the regular wind mutation to get Twisted on their very difficult fruits that already have Bloodlit and Aurora or Sun-Dried or all these other hard ones. It's ridiculously thought out. And the same problem occurs when something requires the Drenched mutation as well as a bunch of hard to get mutations. Imagine trying to get a Drenched Bloodlit Aurora fruit before it freezes from a chill. Picture that in your brain. As soon as a chill hits, boom, the drenched thing is frozen and no longer drenched before you can get the difficult mutations on it. There are some choices of mutations that just don't make sense. And if I'm struggling with it and other people who are struggling with it, we're talking in Discord servers trying to trade amongst ourselves to acquire these stupid things. I can't even begin to imagine what young little Billy coming home from school and sits down and turns on Roblox and looks at the requirements and go, I can't do that, and goes off to play Steal a Brain Rot because it's just so much simpler to play. The overall theme of this video is that these new mechanics and new events, while beautiful and interesting and intricate, are too grindy and too complicated and too confusing. The number of parents who have messaged me and said their kids can't figure out this event and they've moved on to a different game, Steal a Brain Rot or 99 Nights in the Forest, is staggering. And the numbers back it up. So I hope the developers see this. I hope they sit down and consider who they're making their game for. Are they making their game for the hardcore people? Are they making their game for the black market bots? Are they making their game for YouTubers like me? Or are they making their game for a young audience who's currently in school and doesn't have the time to play a lot? They need to think about that as they move forward and design their events. Weekly events, 2 weeks, the bi-weekly event where they split in half and do it once every week. It's a great system. It continues to create new things in the game, but don't make them hard. Make it simple. Keep it simple, stupid. It's a common saying for a reason. So hopefully this video was useful to you. Hopefully you agree. If you have thoughts about how hard this is, comment down below with them. Share them. So hopefully a developer can see your comments and hopefully we can change this game for the better.